Hi, okay, so this playlist is a good one, The Origins. This is in this video I'm gonna kind of nutshell again a little bit what we've learned from all the videos of the playlist, and at the same time I'm gonna introduce the next video documentary thing. So in this next documentary video, the question is the book of Genesis a book of history? And his point obviously is that yes, it is a book of history. There's kind of two kinds of people doing things like this. People that are trying to say it's not a book of history, and it's not a book of history. But in my opinion, it's not a book of history. But that's not really what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to prove I'm wrong or anything. I'm trying to make an example of how someone could benefit from my channel, The Spiral Times, okay? Because in this video, notice at the very beginning, he talks to an expert on the Hebrew language and is trying to get from this expert on the Hebrew language information on if when it says the first day of creation, the second day of creation, third day of creation, if the word day literally means day, or could it mean something else? And the Hebrew expert's saying, yeah, it looks like it probably is saying a day. That those things happened in a day. So then through the documentary, he's always trying to prove that things happened a lot quicker than a day. Okay? I mean, the things happened a lot quicker than an epoch for each, because it's getting more obvious to people that believe in the Bible and that believe science that a day must be more than 24 hours, that a day must be more than that. So he's trying to say, no, it was a day, but things just happened that don't happen now, like volcanoes and earthquakes and the flood of Noah and everything, and things happened that were a lot more extreme than things that are happening now, making things happen sooner and quicker. Okay, so I think that he's right. Things did happen sooner and quicker and were more intense back then, but he could benefit from my playlist on who wrote the Bible, a scholarly look on who wrote the Bible, because the Bible, you have to ask yourself, why was the Bible written? And so the Bible was written by priests at the king's request. So the king of Judah owns the Bible, but asked the priest of Levi to combine the scrolls at that point and make it into a book, to make the Bible. So it's the priest doing that, and the reason that that these things happened was for the interest of the kings now. See, the kings and the priests. So it puts emphasis on the kings from Judah and what the king does, and emphasis on the priests, and gives clout and power and validity to the priest and the king, because they're the ones that are doing the awesome work that is the scriptures, because they're awesome. So the reason that the creation day says a day is because it's in the priests and the king's interest to, like, the point of the creation day is that a week is 7 days long, and on the seventh day you rest. So it's so that you'll need the church and the priests and everything on the seventh day, because it's the Sabbath. And that's the same reason that there's emphasis on that the Bible's literal, because supposedly Lucifer, Satan has control of the kingdoms of the world for 6,000 years, and then for the 7,000, because it says in the book of Proverbs that a day to the Lord is 1,000 years. So if a day to the Lord is 1,000 years, which personally I think the days in the days of creation are more than 1,000 years, and they're not all the same amount of time. They just represent different, I don't know what the right word is, epoch or era, or just like, allotted time for X and X and X to happen. More than 1,000. I think it's more than 1,000 years. But if he wants to believe, because I think that's what he's trying to do, to prove that the Bible's literal, then the most then he's going to have to believe that it's 1,000 years, and that's still really quick, you know. But I'm thinking that it probably is not 1,000 years. I think that the sun was created not 7,000 years ago, in other words, but 4.5 billion years ago, you know, like the scientists teach. They're saying that they're just throwing the Bible away has created a distortion of the way things are, and I think that that's probably true. I think everything, all of its points are true. I agree with them, but you know, like people, they run this way or they run that way. The truth, as usual, is kind of more in between, you know. So you have to remember why the book is written and why the mind behind the work that's the Bible is, you know, what they're up to, you know, because we're all up to something. You know, they're trying to put emphasis on the 7 days of the week and resting on the Sabbath, and that there's going to be a millennium that's 1,000 years where it's the Lord's day and the Lord has a theocratical government, and that's what. So now the earth is going to be living in peace, but that's not what's going to happen. We learn with the advent of Haile Selassie, the incarnation of Jah, not the reincarnation of Jesus. We learn by the incarnation of Jah, the Lion of Judah, of the Apocalypse, that we learn more about this. He opens the second seal and gives the speech before the League of Nations, you know, saying, you know, from Bob Marley's song War, saying that until the philosophy which holds one race superior and another inferior is finally and permanently discredited and abandoned, and until that day, the dream of lasting peace, the dream of the millennium, will be a fleeting illusion. So he's talking to the League of Nations, and later he gives us the speech to the UN. So in other words, it's like a League of Nations UN type thing, not a theocratical king that we pray to and believe is God and will rule the world for 1,000 years, and that will be Jesus, but rather it'll be like a UN type thing where we have like a higher loyalty to our world citizenship and a secondary loyalty to our national citizenship, and we work together in this international morality thing, you know. So that's perhaps the most important thing we learn from Haile Selassie, from this particular advent of Jah, the incarnation of Jah, to redefine who God is, to redefine who the incarnation is, and to redefine what the millennium is and what this whole piece is gonna be all about, you know, on a more modern terms, you know, because now the world's more modern. You have to remember, the past, everybody's illiterate, you know, so that makes a big difference. The priest was the historian because they're the only ones that could read, and history hadn't been invented. There weren't college courses you could take and have a degree in history. There was no such a thing as history. So you know, because people couldn't read, and the people that could were the same people that were the priests, you know. So nowadays, how everybody can read, and there's computers and everything. Now we need to kind of separate history and religion, and these things are obvious. So now we need to redefine things and modernize things, which we do with Haile Selassie. That's the whole point. It becomes obvious when you study these concepts of the Jan Sui and of my channel, the Spiral Times, and the scholarly look at who wrote the Bible, and the scholarly, you know, the temperate look at the origins, you know, not throwing away scripture, you know, save the bones, but yet, you know, considering science and everything. So this documentary is really good, but just notice how he could benefit from the Spiral Times. The Bible does say that the days of creation are a day, and according to the Hebrew, and looking at it that way, it would mean a day, but that's because they are a day. And we learn in the Dragonfly Sutra, the scriptures of the Jan Sui, that it's the first day, let there be light, that's fire. The second day, a ball of water, that's water, and the war in heaven. The third day, land comes up, that's air. And then the fourth day, it just recaps, you know, what's happened. The planets spin, because that's earth, manifest form. You know, that those things aren't going to be coincidences. and it's not a lie either that things did happen in that order, but it's because there's a connection. Like the Buddha says, we're creating the universe now. You know, the universe, the who Jah is within, and we're creating it now in a transcending time kind of a way. You know, what's inside hasn't changed. It's been the same all along, and that's where we find the origin of these events, and the origins of us and our species and our planet and everything is within. Okay, and so it's a day in a holiday, and we celebrate the holidays kind of a day. You know, the Sabbath is actually a holiday. It's the weekly Sabbath, and annual Sabbath is the holidays. You know, so it's kind of like it's the holidays, like how in the Ansui we have holidays. So the question of who wrote the Bible, that we're literate now, and that the science and everything wasn't separate in the past, and now it needs to be, and that we don't. It's not going to be a theocracy. If we're going to live 1,000 years of peace, Jesus is not the only way to salvation. That's just each religion says the only saying the Hare Krishna prayer, only this, only that. Everybody's saying only the Quran, only. It's because each religion is self-sufficient, but like they all work. You don't really, if you in your search of truth you become attached to something, that thing is going to work. Keep going. You are motivated towards it for a reason. Everything happens for a reason, but it doesn't mean that everybody needs to be the same religion as you. And so that for the same reasons, a theocratical government ruling that theocracy is ruled by Jesus isn't going to work. It's more a validity, like a validating of everything through a more modern look at it, which is like more like the UN. There will be 1,000 years peace, but it's so that's why the Bible needs you to think they're days, and needs you to think that it happened in such a short amount of time, at the interest of the priest and the king. But the Bible's not a science book, and its interests are not really the same as a scientist. But its interests are based on things that are real. So a scientist needs to save the bones. The scientist needs to not throw away the religion and think it's garbage, making him more of a scientist, or her more of a scientist. And the priest needs to not be at war with the scientist. And in this documentary, there's not really war. It's just they don't really understand the things that I've just said in this. So that's kind of the point. I want you to watch this documentary. So you've watched this playlist, I'm assuming, and so you have all these bits of information, that there was probably a species that lived before us that was intelligent too, that evolution might not be exactly like they say, that just all these points, that Nimrod and blah blah blah, and Hermes and the aliens and the Anunnaki and just all this stuff coming into it, when in this documentary, when they talk about God teaching him, and God this and God that, does that mean the God within, or does it mean the Anunnaki, the aliens? So just apply everything in the playlist with what I've said in this video. Refreshing all the right things. So when you watch this video, just see this video will teach you things, and it's valuable. It's a wonderful addition to this playlist. But at the same time, where he's taking it exactly is error. He would be better off to subscribe to my channel and absorb the message. It's not just Hebrew, it's the Kabbalah. It's not just how to speak and understand the Hebrew language. It's what the characters mean on a deeper level, which is what the Kabbalah is all about, and the Sephirot and the Sefer Yetzirah. So enjoy this next video.